made this video to save your life tonight. She didn't put down her scissors until the moment she died because she thought it was just a severe cold. But inside her body, a ticking time bomb had already exploded. If you are ignoring unexplained fatigue or strange bruises on your body, stop what you are doing right now and watch this video until the end. At the crime scene, there were no signs of forced entry or any struggle. The victim was lying on her bed, silent and still, as if she had fallen into a deep sleep. The only clues left were a packet of cold medicine on the nightstand and a half-drunk glass of water. But my instinct told me the killer wasn't outside the door. The killer was hiding in the very air she breathed for the last 20 years. Today we tracked down the invisible killer that silently took her life. At 6 a.m., when everyone was exhausted from dealing with drunks and fights, I received a dispatch order regarding a suspicious death of a woman in her 40s. My eyelids were heavy from the night shift, but those two words, suspicious death, woke me up like a bucket of ice water. Was it a simple sudden death or a concealed homicide? I have lived as a detective for over 20 years, but the road to face someone's death is something I never get used to. At the scene, only the red rotating lights of the ambulance were spinning in silence. As soon as I opened the door, I was hit by a smell. It was the stench of strong perm. Chemicals and hair dye soaked into every corner of the house, mixed with the stale smell of old cigarettes. It created a sickening metallic odor that stung my nose. The deceased was lying perfectly straight on the bed, and her body was already cold. But the strange thing was, bruise-like spots were blooming all over her body. I was able to take a statement regarding the case from the hair salon employee who discovered the deceased.
Detective, the owner said she had a terrible flu a few days ago. She had a fever and kept shivering. We all thought it was just a bad cold.
Just as the employee said, empty bottles of cold medicine and fever reducers were scattered by the bed. On the surface, it appeared to be death from overwork or a side effect of medication. But to my eyes, the strange red spots spreading on her inner arms and legs did not look normal.
Detective Paul, all over the deceased's body, we observed multiple petechiae and ecchymosis. These are not bruises caused by external impact. This is subcutaneous bleeding caused by a decrease in platelets. The most direct cause of death is an intracerebral hemorrhage. In other words, a brain hemorrhage, however. But this is not caused by hypertension. The white blood cell count is abnormally high and the platelet count is at rock bottom. The possibility of acute myeloid leukemia, or AML, is extremely high.
The autopsy results provided by the forensic pathologist were shocking. The victim's cause of death was not a simple cerebral hemorrhage. Her blood had lost its ability to clot. Simply put, her blood was full of cancer cells, and as a result, a cerebral blood vessel ruptured while normal clotting function had stopped. This was clearly a death by natural causes, but I started to re-examine this from the perspective of environmental homicide. Why did a healthy woman in her 40s suddenly develop acute leukemia? The answer lay in her work environment.
She had been running a hair salon for over 20 years. She didn't even have time for a proper meal, so she would make do with a single slice of toast. She was too busy styling hair to even use the restroom. She frequently smoked behind the shop to cope with the stress. When she told me, she kept getting bruises a few days ago, and that her gums wouldn't stop bleeding when brushing. I should have taken her to a major hospital back then, even if I had to force her. I just dismissed it as fatigue and told her to take some vitamins. I'm a terrible husband. It's all my fault.
The real culprits of this case were chemicals and negligence. First, the invisible gas chamber. The deceased was exposed to dozens of chemical agents for over 10 hours a day in a cramped, poorly ventilated space. Volatile organic compounds such as benzene and formaldehyde, found in hair dyes and perming solutions, accumulate in the body through the respiratory system and the skin. These are class 1 carcinogens that slowly destroy bone marrow function. Second, the deadly catalyst, smoking. Into her lungs and blood vessels, already exhausted by chemicals, she blew cigarette smoke under the pretext of stress relief. Smoking while exposed to benzene is like pouring gasoline on a fire. This was the worst combination, exponentially increasing the risk of developing acute leukemia. Third, they failed to recognize the signals sent by death and interpreted them differently before her death. Her body was constantly sending distress signals. The high fever and chills mistaken for a cold were in fact tumor fever caused by the body fighting against cancer cells. Purpura, those bruise-like marks that appeared without any injury, along with gum bleeding, were clear evidence that her platelets were being destroyed. However, she dismissed these fatal warning signs as simple fatigue and a cold and missed the golden time. In this regard, Detective Hans Sohi will explain the preventive measures for this blood cancer, specifically acute leukemia. Please listen carefully.
Hello, I'm Officer Han. If you work in the beauty industry, frequently handle chemicals, or suffer from unexplained fatigue, since medical costs are astronomical, to survive in this reality, you must put these 3 things into practice right now. First, ventilation is not a choice, it is a matter of survival. Simply keeping the door open is not enough. You must install a mechanical ventilation system, or use large industrial fans to forcibly circulate the air. When mixing chemicals, always do so under a local exhaust hood, or with the windows wide open. And just because there's no smell, it doesn't mean it's safe. Colorless, odorless toxins are actually more dangerous. Ventilation and protective gear are the cheapest cancer insurance. Second, check the rating of your gloves and masks. Regular dental masks or cotton gloves cannot block chemicals. You don't necessarily need a gas mask, but please wear a mask rated KF94 or higher, and when handling chemicals, you must use nitrile gloves. It has superior chemical resistance compared to latex. Rule number 3, be smart about your healthcare. Check your insurance policy today. Many plans cover 1 annual physical for free, or use direct-to-consumer lab tests to get a CBC blood test without a doctor's expensive prescription. With just a single CBC test, you can check your white blood cell, red blood cell, and platelet counts, and detect leukemia at an early stage. If you have unexplained bruises, bleeding gums, and high fever at the same time, stop worrying about the bill. You must go to the ER immediately. Your life depends on it.
Leaving the scene, I saw her scissors lying in front of the mirror. The gold plating on the handles was worn off from her sweat and chemicals. Her strong sense of responsibility, ironically, drove her to death. Please do not ignore the signals from your body. Our bodies are more honest and much more fragile than we think. Like and subscribe, and share your dangerous work experiences in the comments. Let's continue investigating the final clues for survival with Cheongdam Paul. This was Cheongdam Paul.